I do a lot of this. I'm very expressive with my hands. If you don't like it, leave. If you don't mind it, thank you. Because you're just going to have to get used to it, basically. It's just a habit. Today's case, bitch. It's so fascinating yet very controversial. Hey, it's Mel. Hope you're doing well, and if you're new to the channel, welcome. Also, welcome back to Crit Week. Today we're going to be looking at the case of the Southend werewolf Bill Ramsey. This is an Ed and Lorraine Warren case. This case occurred in Essex, 1952. There's a lot to cover, so let's get into it. Bill Ramsey lived with his mum and dad in Essex in the small seaside town of Southend. He was a very creative, normal child with a normal, happy family, and he loved to play outside. He never got into any real trouble growing up. He was a good kid. In 1952, on one Saturday afternoon, 9-year-old Bill was playing in the back garden when he began to feel a bit strange. A sudden, icy cold sensation swept over him. It went down his entire body, and he wasn't sure what was happening. There was a foul stench nearby which made him vomit. In that moment, he had two things on his mind: running away to a life on the ocean waves and wolves. He was close to the garden fence. The yells from his mum brought him out of whatever had gripped him, like he was in a trance-like state. Out of nowhere, an intense rage came over him. He uprooted a fence post with the fence still attached and was swinging it around like a club. It was a struggle for his own parents to remove the post from him with their bare hands. He developed such wild strength out of nowhere. Bill's parents, out of fear, both ran into the house and stayed there until he calmed down. Bill put the wire meshing into his mouth and started gnawing on it. The cold feeling returned and he began to growl. His parents watched from the window in shock. Once Bill had calmed down, his parents took him into the house and cleaned his mouth and hand wounds. After this incident for nearly 15 years, nothing remotely strange happened. Bill grew up, got married and had 3 children. He was a good dad, a loving husband, and he worked as a carpenter. But the first 2 years of his marriage, Bill had nightmares. He would wake up in a cold sweat and felt dread. Each dream was the same. In his dream, he was always a few steps behind his wife, who would turn around to face him, and then she would run away in terror. His wild dreams ended in 1967. 18 months on, Bill woke up one night in his bedroom and heard what he thought was a wild animal panting. It was coming from Bill himself. Once again, there was a pause in his behaviour for another 15 years. In 1983, Bill was at a local pub with some friends. After 7 drinks, that icy cold feeling came back and he went to the toilets. He checked on himself in the mirror just to make sure that he was okay, but what he saw staring back at him was a werewolf. In the car ride home, Bill began to growl and his hands twisted into claws. He tried to bite one of his friend's legs, and the driver didn't panic. He was very calm. He stopped the car and tried to get Bill out of the back of the car. It was a struggle. It took 7 minutes and a lot of effort. Once out of the car, Bill calmed down. Worse was to come, but not for another 18 months. Shortly before Christmas of 1983, Bill began to suffer chest pains. He checked himself into the local hospital emergency room and was halfway through a blood pressure examination when he sunk his teeth into the arms of a nurse and ran through the ward. People who were wandering around on that ward, they were confused, some were screaming, and witnesses said that Bill's behaviour was very erratic. One minute he'd be like really enraged for no reason, the next minute he'd be really calm. It was clear that something was going on. Some people suspected he might have had schizophrenia, others said that he just had these emotional outbursts. Witnesses said that Bill had hunched shoulders and his hands twisted into claws, and he bore lips like a rabid animal. Anyone who approached Bill was easily knocked over. He had such strength. It took a group of people to finally subdue him. A police officer put handcuffs on him, but this still wasn't sufficient. A heavy tranquilizer finally put Bill down. The next morning, the tranquilizer had finally worn off along with the original transformation. After breakfast, Bill told a doctor his story of what had happened, and the doctor recommended that Bill stay in the hospital under further observation, but Bill denied this idea and he was released from the hospital. Within 2 months, however, he was back at the hospital. In January 1984, after visiting his mum, Bill, now age 44, felt an attack coming on. He went to the hospital and a nurse was alone with him in the emergency room. She feared for her life once she told Bill that she was going away to get a doctor. Bill lunged for an orderly and 4 police officers entered the hospital and circled him. They had a standoff with him for a few seconds. Bill began growling and snarling at the police. His behaviour was wild. He was on the floor, crawling around on all fours. This particular incident was mentioned in the local newspaper. The police advanced on Bill, who defended himself. 1 police officer suffered severe wounds and was left in the hospital for 4 days. The police managed to handcuff Bill again. He eventually calmed down and walked to the police car without incident. When he arrived at the local police station, a police surgeon was quickly summoned. Fearing for his family's safety, Bill at one point even considered checking himself into a mental institution, but decided against it. At this point, Bill was calm, rational and in control, and he was released. In the summer of 1987, Bill was back at the police station. Only this time he was much more public-spirited, shall we say. He had more witnesses to this incident. People in town were saying really nasty things about him. Bill was a family man. He worked very hard and never experienced any sort of mental health. The icy cold feeling came back along with a sensation on his chest. A big police officer questioned Bill in his car. He made the mistake of gently touching Bill's arm, which then resulted in an outburst. The officer was then thrown to the ground. He was then choked by Bill and help finally came. The officer survived the attack. It took 8 policemen to hold Bill down and 2 injections to finally restrain him. He was sedated with a dose nearly 3 times the amount of an average person. Over the next 10 days, countless X-rays, MRIs and psychiatric tests couldn't determine what was wrong with Bill. Something needed to happen to stop these violent outbursts. Bill and his wife visited London and saw demonologist couple Ed and Lorraine Warren. During their stay in London, Bill's story appeared on a TV show at the time. Lorraine immediately considered that Bill was being possessed and quickly got in touch with the Southend police station. The Warrens spoke with Bill and eventually convinced him to come to their church in Connecticut and undergo an exorcism with their own specialist, Bishop Robert McKenna. Bill made the trip in 1989. The night before the exorcism, Bill tried to strangle his wife while she slept. When the exorcism began, Bill was not impressed. The service was in Latin and for half an hour nothing happened. But then Bill's appearance changed. That cold, icy feeling came back. He growled, his face contorted, and his hands turned into claws. Bishop Robert told the demon to leave, and Bill nearly broke free of his restraints out of the chair, and his anger was at an all-time high. The whole incident was recorded on film. After this exorcism, Bill said that he felt fine, that he was free, his behaviour calmed down, and he never again experienced any type of attack, and he went on to live a normal, happy life with his family. His last public appearance was in 1992 when he updated people on his progress. There's been no further updates. I'm not even sure if Bill is still alive, or his family for that matter. They've remained out of the public eye. I have no idea, side note, if Bill was religious or not. Final thoughts. I do think that what Bill experienced was something to do with mental health. There seems to be a pattern between one outburst to another and these weird incidents that Bill went through. I don't know why that is. That is all for today. That was the case of Bill Ramsey, the Southern Werewolf. As always, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.